Hi, hello, and welcome to 1111 Divine Lovers series brought to you by Vertex of Abundance. My name is Serene Priestess Gorgeous, also known as the Blosi Baba, aka FKA, ad nauseam, ad infinitum. I'll be your oracle today. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, and to be honest, Ratchet Protocol, it's a bit unrefined and inelegant for my taste. However, we must begin again. Show must go on. And let's crank it out here. This is the 1111 Divine Lover series. It is the new moon in Leo. So it is actually more of the twin flame, soulmate, divine partnership aspect of the connection versus the catalytic or karmic partnership aspect of the connection, which is more of the revolving door that deals with culminating, completion, terminating energies. This cycle does terminate around the 19th of August, begins around the 20th of July, new moon in Leo, Leo being a masculine energy. The masculine, divine masculine, is further away from the camera. The divine feminine would be closer to the camera. We are deliberating the findings from the Aleister Crowley, later Frida Harris. We have 11 cards down by 11 cards, 11 minor by 11 major arcana. The guidance will be imposed by the Alana Fairchild Rumi Oracle. Okay, the Rumi Oracle by Alana Fairchild. There were two cards that came out. So it's an 11 by 11, which is 22. It's 23 for right now. We have a clarifier. Okay, so we had commitment and divine discontent. I'll be clarifying actually with the Carolyn Miss archetype cards, and we have one of those out already. This actually, we started the reading with this. It was during meditation, I received some guidance as the reader, and my function is I'm kind of like a cosmic superintendent. Think of me as like a celestial inspector. I have general and specialized knowledge, specifically accessing wisdom, of finding light in the darkness, discernment, soul's wisdom, inner knowing. Okay, so I'll elucidate those. We have, actually, let's do this the actual way. Hi, hello, and welcome, by the way. So we had divine discontent and commitment. We start with some, for those who like to just tune in for a few minutes. So divine discontent, I was already picking up on the energy of like, okay, a lot of the divine feminine, we're stepping into the devotion. However, we still have this man as a plan thing. So when we have all this love for God, we tend to equate that with a singular person. And we don't understand that, devotion is going to people, things is going to the temporal, not the eternal. And that might be some of the karma that's coming out, because normally when the devil comes out, it makes the rest of the reading toxic. However, we're just leaving Cancer. So the opposing sign is that. There are some retrogrades. So even though normally we wouldn't like the devil card out, it is Capricorn. There are some things going retrograde in Capricorn. So we're having a lot of Capricorn review to everything going on, whether it's good or bad. Because Capricorn, it's not the best, but it is a great sign to take inventory. So to go through things, to reconcile things, to dot the I's, cross the T's, to do inventory, to check what's on the ledger against what you have on hand, technically, to check the statements and the balance sheets and the income statements and the profit and loss, to go through, figure out where you're winning, figure out where you're bleeding, turn the dials, what's in the red, what's in the black. It's easy to trust when you can verify. And To me, Capricorn is the energy of running a threat analysis. I typically, see where your attack vectors are. Frankly, um, you know, just run through your threat models and understand where your risk exposure is. Understand the perils in your business. I mean, to me, life is a business. Incarnating into a body is a business. You have to navigate the marketplace, get from point A to point B. You might have an objective. How does the objective get met? What are the threats? Who are the other players? Define some scenarios. Do you have a standard operating procedure? These are just the kind of the things that you would think about in the less toxic, the less negative aspect of the devil card, especially with that 9 of swords being there. That clarifies it into like, oh gosh, everything is a long drawn out process. It's a little bit tedious. And it can be anguish and worrying and all of the other things, but unfortunately, since it's in the obstacle, the conflict, the struggle, the objection, and it's mirrored by a 3, it literally means your mind is going to have to show up, participate, and expand with conflicting information. Yeah, okay, there's a bigger, better, and better, but you're actually pessimistic, you're believing in the worst. You've lost hope, faith, optimism, and your heart is broken because your mind is stuck on stupid. It doesn't mean that your feelings are irrelevant. It actually just means that they're not applicable. Just because you feel something doesn't make it true, or it doesn't mean that the other party is going to be using your logic. So your feelings actually informed your experience. Your feelings are telling you that your experience up until now has sucked or has turned to a place where things are no longer working for you. But your feelings inform your experience, and from that experience, you could go forward with a new higher understanding of your needs. Your needs can be communicated because the other person is responsible for their behavior. And if their behavior is showing up to the experience, shared and co-creating an experience of you not getting your needs met, that's a different story. If you're in a union with somebody, it doesn't matter if it's intimate or not. If you're in a relationship with another person, let's operate from the assumption that there's going to be a mutually beneficial, nourishing needs exchange, meaning you contribute to what's alive in the other person. If you're in a relationship with somebody, you're going to want them to get their needs met, and it will be helpful if you show a willingness to help them meet their needs. Don't go intentionally hurting people's feelings, but they're responsible for their own feelings. Feelings lets you know that you have unmet needs. And a lot of your heart is hurting because your mind is stuck on something. And you have to be haunted because the austerity is going to give you the willpower and the impetus, often as catalyst. I don't see the catalyst card, but something is growing here. It's an expansion, but only if we're being forced to break out of a stuck on stupid thing that is blocking and stripping the growth. Now, divine discontent, winter falls upon us. The spring can bring new growth. Cry the tears, allow the longing. Sadness brings surrender and a deep desire to be free. I know your heart, he says, Rumi. I hear it breaking and groaning in the darkest night when you imagine yourself to be silently cast adrift in sleep. It speaks to me, that sacred heart of yours, whispering its longing and bemoaning its divine discontent. It knows when something is amiss, that something is not quite right as yet. There is a piece of the puzzle missing. Even in its tremendous gratitude for all that is, and there is much gratitude and sweet appreciation in that precious heart of yours, there is a murmuring, a questing. It cries out to heaven, vouchsafe me your blessing. I cannot go on. I am broken and in need of your tenderness for healing. I am empty and in need of filling, not with stuff and bits, but the most precious nectar of divine fulfillment. Nothing else will satisfy me. Please, please restore me to wholeness. I can bear this missing piece, this broken disarray no longer. I listen and I cajole that wise heart of yours, beloved. I praise it for its honesty and longing, for the longing is an irresistible perfume to the beloved, attracting the only salve that will soothe the divine discontent of your truth-seeking heart, that of divine presence, that of absolute and unquestionable presence. There's a sense within you, perhaps quite obvious to your conscious mind, or perhaps only dimly registered as an unnameable and underlying sense of anxiety. That something in your life is not quite right. And maybe the sense, even amongst so much gratitude, of a yearning yet to be met, a longing to be fulfilled yet unsatisfied. This is the pain of the acknowledging heart, the awakening, knowing. The heart is capable of bliss and ecstatic reverence for the sheer beauty and wonder of creation, yet as the heart matures, there will be a process of deep passionate longing that awakens for the divine. It is the impatience for the caress of the great lover, for the presence of the divine to come to you. Over time, that longing will grow from a mild inner sense of incompleteness, needing to become whole. It will develop into a holy fire, a sacred rage, a stamping of feet, a pounding of fist upon the altar, and a longing so deep and so distressing that one may well break into tears at the impossibility of bearing that pain of apparent separation for even a moment longer. Where is my beloved? Cries the awakening heart. I call for my beloved, and yet I am here still waiting. I can stand this no longer. As devotion grows and passion for the divine intensifies, so too does this yearning. So much so that this may come to feel as though your heart is breaking for the divine. Or perhaps you are not quite there yet. Your heart is attached to a smaller God, such as your shadow, such as your job, such as your lover, such as the body looking a certain way or being able to live your life in a particular way. These smaller gods are not necessarily an issue yet. You're being asked to follow some guidance from the divine. They want you to know things. They want to draw you closer. Something that means you will have to merge. You'll have to allow this meager meal to be wrested from your hands so that you may feast upon something far more delectable and grand. The divine is a fiercely possessive lover. There is a face of another, if there is a face of another beloved preventing you from the longing for the divine embrace, and if you cannot see that it is a divine beloved within your lover that you are loving, well then, something must be done by the heavens. Make your relationships sacrosanct. Seek the divine in all things. When you cannot, when the power of a lesser God has you in its grip, acknowledge it, bear witness to it. Do not chastise it. Instead, be truthful. Let your heart break and lie, prostrate on the floor, hands clutching and head bowed as though only your sadness and plight could stir the heart of the divine beloved into descent, to sour you in grace, to cower you in grace, saving you from life far too bland for your exquisite Epicurean palate. Do not misinterpret the pain and think something really is wrong. If you are surrounded by status and money and cannot understand why you should mourn, it is even more important that you allow yourself to do so. Mourning is to be felt. Understanding is not so relevant. But if you seek understanding, then know this, dear, blazing angel, you are just waking from the deepest slumber. And with your awakening heart, you are realizing a truth, a part of you, deeper, wider, vaster and more instinctive, truthful and more intelligent than your mind. It is lonely for the divine embrace. Something within you, again, is lonely for the divine embrace. That is right. This is sensible. This is sanity. It is pain, the real noble pain of the heart that says there is something more than this inadequacy, this settling of plastic instead of precious gemstones that must end now. I cannot be fed by pixelated sunsets and animation upon my computer screen. I yearn to be blasted by so much radiance and so much beauty, only by the real thing, that I become stupefied. I must witness so much divine splendor that I can utter in some incoherent grunt. My mind dissembled, my heart ignited, presence of the beloved. I want to become a fumbling, ecstatic wreck in the presence of my beloved. I want to allow this pain, this yearning, this divine discontent to guide me to my holy lover, so my life may never be the same again. What is being said is that we distract ourselves with material, temporary things because we have this yearning for something beyond our logical mind. In none of the places where they conditioned or programmed us are we able to discern that what is going on. You know, today in the modern world, we do have this need to intellectually understand our problems, and we go and we research on Google. We try to fit it into the science books, religious books, and there is something eternal, something beyond logical, something beyond intellectual that is begging, searching, seeking intently to be satiated. And a lot of times we're aware of this, but it's always in the addiction, the medicating, the buffering, the numbing. So we do a lot in drugs and addiction like sex or food or TV or whatever. You know, I'm seeing a lot of porn addiction right now. So it's in everybody, guys and girls. It's I don't know, it's weird as ugly head. It's usually something I only see when I work with addiction coaching, like actual narcotics, but it seems to be, I don't know, it might be the COVID thing. I'm noticing all these weird addictions pop out right around March, end of March. And the devil card is out here. Whenever you have the devil opposite the star, it does talk about the dark web and nasty networks, even things like trafficking and things of that nature. But this is a more positive spin. So we enter in this cycle with a mystery being revealed in the previous part of the cycle. We were wrapping up the previous cycle with at the very least a system structure foundation being laid. Technically, a cycle got anchored into the physical or closer to the material plane. And the obstacle right now is to go the full body of the cycle, fully complete all this karma. Have the bad thoughts, feel the bad feelings, have your hope, faith, optimism destroyed in the pessimism, the lack of faith, the lack of optimism, and then have to claw your way out of the gutter and get back to it. Over the next month, a lot of aspects of, over the next 2 weeks, a lot of the aspects of the karma are going to be faced. Are going to be seen, are going to be looked at, are going to be identified. Truths, some cold hard truths about the actual path are going to be revealed. The divine feminine is going to have to put faith in creation, and they're only going to be able to have their power intact when they can only give to themselves. Some of what needed to happen was that the feminine needed to, I'm sorry, grow through a broken heart, because the devotion was going to a lesser God. And I'm going to clarify here. Sometimes your belief system is blocking you from receiving a blessing. You'll almost kill your blessings because you label too quickly, you mislabel, misjudge, misperceive too quickly, or you limit the value of something. And through having to go it alone or having to look into the inner resources, having to trust in the wisdom of creation, where the consciousness, subconscious becomes conscious, or when right at the precipice of the light being illuminated in the darkness, we needed to hang out in that place. So that's always the broken heart, the reality coming in and killing something which used to be joyful, almost where you get broken out of naivete, where you get broken out of childlike nature, where you get broken out of innocence, where you get broken out of maturity. It's the equivalent of like a spiritual or heart hymen being broken. Men have it too. We all have our bubbles popped. We have our first everything, not just sex. We have a first job. We have a first car. We have a first apartment. We have a first lease that we sign. We have a first breakup. We have a first child. We have a first pet die. We have a first license, driver's license that we get. You know, we have a first time that we get a ticket in the mail, first time we get sued. Not every first happens for every person, but we all have a first. And there's a bubble that gets busted. And we have to reorganize, restructure, reframe our hope, wish, prayer, our path, our bigger, brighter, and better, our hope, wishing, faith, hope, optimism. That we have to reframe, restructure, or we'll get run over. And even when we do go back and give trust and give faith and give hope and give devotion, we will have to have a different aspect, different facet of naivete. We can't go back in the same naive that we had before. Once you know, you can't unknow. So this knowing is the self. We have to break out, break free, or at least identify what we're trapped. There will be something that we're either giving our power away or that's tyrannical. Period. And a lot of the focus is going to go to the feminine, incorporating where energy is growing. Energy flows where attention goes. Also, if it's not a flow, it's not a go. And sometimes if we're thinking about things or there's something alive in our heart, especially a truth, it should hurt us. It should be prickly and not fuzzy. When those things start to grow, when those things start to expand, wonderful. We should be seeing healing where we had to resolve pessimism around our path. There should be healing where we have to face truth around our path. And yeah, we may have been giving resources to things that shouldn't be given resources about, but it's okay to give to something if we understand our power. If we're giving our power away from a place of ignorance, that's the healing. Because there will be hard work and sacrifice around our journey through the physical. Oftentimes it's money, but it can just be self-worth and value. We may be needing to grow into the Nine of Pentacles. When you master the Page of Pentacles, it typically turns into the Nine of Pentacles, Venus. And so that's becoming secure in the self, building up the reserves, self-worth and value, all of that. And the opposite is developing an institution, developing a structure, developing the sacrifice to make is going on a journey to the physical for self-transformation. How do we accumulate cycles where we feel accomplish. And the secret behind all of this is there are things which you give to which nourish the soul, and everything you're doing is either feeding your soul or depleting your soul. Everything you're doing is either nourishing the soul or robbing the soul. Because we evolved out of the situation with the masculine switches to the loving when in the beginning it was the feminine. Because the feminine is going to now know how to recognize when what they wanted in the beginning and were giving to, hoping, wishing, praying for, and it wasn't coming, it's going to show up when they stop seeking for it. Let me help you because I can't read cards here. It's too convoluted. Get up from the table when love no longer being served, because oftentimes it's not about what's wrong with the other person. If you're really attracted to this person, it's because they're mirroring something alive in you. If you really want this love, if you really want this job, if you really want this everything, focus on finding your soul group. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Furthermore, everything you want is at the vibration that it exists at. A twin flame, a soulmate connection, if it's a dimensional connection, you're trying to anchor into the third dimension, it will destroy a lot of low vibrational stuff. If it doesn't break you open, I question its spiritual nature. It's always a karmic, it's always a catalytic when a person doesn't cop, a person in the connection doesn't cop to the healing. You're going to have to grow into it because you're going to have to shed all that lower vibrational, that density, if you're really going to get to that true, genuine 5-dimensional sacred union. So when the situation shows up, if you're not growing together, you're growing apart, because typically the feminine is going to heal faster. Because I'll be honest, they embody the pain more closer to the physical. So it materializes the healing quicker. The masculine, that energy, his energies exist more in the spiritual plane. The feminine embodies a concept and idea that's not physical, but their energy is actually more manifest. More of the soul manifests into the feminine than it does into the masculine, believe it or not. It's not uncommon for a masculine energy, divine masculine, not when they step into the sacred union, but up until Hieros Gamos, the union of the souls. The masculine is actually going to have upwards of 25% manifested. So 3/4 of the souls off somewhere in the spiritual. With the feminine, it could be upwards of 50% manifested. Especially a queen, someone with a larger family, especially if you see a lot of the matriarchs, especially if you see someone with a lot of children. So when the connection formalizes, meaning when it gets recognized by one person, go through the paces. You'll find that there's something very clear that you've probably put a lot of work in that you're going to want to hold on to. There's going to be all these truths that you have to face. One of these truths that you have to face is that you might have put a lot of unreciprocal emotional investment into this connection. Eventually, there's going to be some type of self-medicine, self-medicating that happens. On a spiritual level, it's good. You'll have some type of healing, but it will involve you detoxing of some kind. And the alignment will be going on a solo journey, but you'll notice as you go towards your own self-worth and value, the other person and the connection will come back in. One person needed self-worth and value and hope, faith, and optimism. This month is a lot more hope, faith, and optimism. And actually, it's the feminine that needed hope, faith, and optimism and a bigger, brighter, and better future through self-worth and value right now in yourself. Getting up from the table of love no longer being served because you love a person for what it makes you feel, not for what they give you. So this person comes into your life and all of a sudden all these lights are turned on within you, all these bells are ringing within you. Follow that, not what they're doing. They don't have to reciprocate any of that back to you, and they might not. And it will appear like that to you, even though they're going at a slower rate because they're on a different trajectory, because they're healing at a different rate than you. And when they're at that vibration, it'll come back together. So what's better is if you have a connection with the divine and allow the divine to be anchored into the physical through this person in the connection. And if they don't heal and the macro timeline starts to progress, that sacred union will anchor through a different person completely. And if you work on your own healing, you won't be projecting onto them. And that will hold space for if they do want to come back through, having healed. Because we have all types of transitions here. So we don't have the soul union out, and it wouldn't right now. There's a lot of darkness in the world. We have 25% of the union on the table here. We have the divine feminine, but the masculine's not here accompanying them, and they're not in the physical, so it doesn't, none of this counts. We have 25% of the union here. And it doesn't come out. It's not out this month. So even though we're in a divine partnership aspect of the cycle, it didn't come out. We're dealing more with karma, and it would be because it's a global thing. So when there's the particular set we have right now where the skew for the reading is more positive, and still we're having to talk about toxicity, still we're having to talk about the negativity. It's a warning. Be careful not to let blood get in the water, or to let things become toxic, or be careful of mixture. Don't put too much, spices in mixture. You taste it as you go along, that kind of deal. There might be some harder work. It might be some having to dredge things up or deal with some more unsavory particulates, most unpleasant things. And it will be somewhat kind of ritualistic, meaning having to go through some particular things. For instance, having to pay back taxes, back tickets, face up to something, confess something, admit something, or fully dredge up. This happens sometimes for me, especially when, well, I'm thinking of myself personally right now. Okay, a model that I operate by is when you bring up the past, make sure that it's for clarity on how to move towards the future. And when you bring up the past, if it's happened more than 72 hours ago, give permission. Can I bring something up from the past so that we can move forward in the future? Can I bring something up from the past so that I can move on in the future? I phrase it differently in my own words, but that's the model. I typically say, for me, I say, for me, I need to know X, Y, Z. It's hard for me to trust kindness when I've seen anger and it wasn't dealt with properly. And I have a whole list of how it should be dealt with, but those are for me and my needs. I don't impose those on other people, but I do make value judgments versus moral judgments. Just because you didn't do things my way, I won't say that you're bad or wrong. I will say, okay, I withdraw my energy because something didn't happen the way that I needed it to happen. it's even a step beyond that. And I'm seeing this here, this devil speaking, because it's accompanied by the Nine of Swords. We have the Judgment card out with the Four of Cups. We have the Hermit card out with the Queen of Cups. That's evolving into next month. We start the month with the Moon card, excuse me, the High Priestess card with the Four of Pentacles, and the Moon card with the King of Pentacles. Some type of culmination cycle got anchored to the physical. And we have the ability to move through it once we mastered it. So a situation is ripened and we're staying in the past, and the recognition of the ripening comes out in this cycle, and it will be when we look at how to move through the cycle alone, even though we've never been alone. We were projecting the lack of knowledge of the eternity of the union onto our temporary understanding of a specific person. That person's walking with that body for 84 plus years, etc., around approximately, right? The human lifespan. But this twin flame union goes well beyond this life. We've been ignorant to our true natures, and we need to come into some self-absolution. Forgiveness is something you give yourself. Absolution can come from another person. But you can't authentically seek forgiveness until you come into self-absolution, because you forgive yourself for your ignorance. Other people can absolve you of the need to make amends once you can say, hey, I recognize that who I was back then caused you harm, and I'm sorry. I don't find myself to be that person today, and I would never today in my today self do what I did to you back then. Sometimes you do make amends or restitution, things of that nature. And sometimes, okay, men will have a harder time with this. Sometimes, okay, well, this isn't a situation where there needs to be space taken. There's a whole mental hullabaloo, a jungle, not the good kind either, not Nine of Wands. We have the Nine of Swords here. 9 is the jungle card. Not forest, number 7, 9, jungle, wild. Wild, untamed, only divine virtue and sovereignty can manage that. And when you have a 9, it's a resource card. 7 is the power, 9 is the shared resource there. When you have the resource of opposition oppression, you would need to know how karma has limited manifestation and culmination of cycles. And the cycle here is for the union. Okay, so the answer is that on the feminine side, there were questions about the future. The future was looking dark. The future was not looking bright. And in reality, it was pessimism, a lack of hope, a lack of faith, a lack of optimism. There was an inability and unwillingness to see bigger and brighter and better, because there were some emotional wounds, but the wound was where the light shined through. But the seeking wasn't going to the eternal, it was going to the right now. So we were placing love, we were placing lovers before God, before the universe, before oneness, before self-love. So that was giving to the lack of faith, lack of hope, lack of optimism. And when that situation aligned through self-worth and value, then the strength, courage, and wisdom came in for bigger and brighter and better, the hope, faith, and optimism. When the hope, faith, and optimism was given or adhered to or aligned with from a self-affirming standpoint, the strength, courage, and wisdom came in from the twin flame standpoint. So until you can stand on your own, you will not be able to stand together, period. Even though you've been together in a higher realm, that was hidden in your subconscious because you were unable to confront what was alive in you. So on the other side of your fears was the glory, but since you weren't dealing with your fears and you were projecting your fears onto another person, the another person was blocking your glory because you were giving them permission to do so, because you were making them the issue. So divine discontent was to have self-love so that the eternity of the forever love could come through. There was no understanding of the authentic forever love because the understanding of self-love was non-existent. When the forever love was always there, but it would never be there until you understood divinity, love of the divine. So let's start with the beginning of the cycle. Fool, fearlessly reveling in emotion, helping people laugh at the absurdity of hypocrisy, instead of using humor to wound, denying emotional truth. In our hand here, we have guide. So controlling guidance, mislabeling, misjudging, misperceiving, we can perceive the phenomenon in all of the situation. We can understand nature, God-like nature, and the divine in everything. In our own selves, with our ideas and our emotions, how we perceive the present, and what the stimuli of the environment is, the veil of the authentic self, where we need to give forgiveness and the absolution. There's an arrogance when we're challenged, when we're refused, when we're denied, when our knowledge, when our beauty, when our yearning is not reflected back to us. We become controlling and demanding, wanting a guide to give us love because we love him instead of understanding that he needs healing first. Wanting somebody to go faster or share things when they're not openly willingly sharing them. Getting mad that we're hurting because somebody's not returning love and affection back to us, but we're also refusing to get up from the table. So we're upset with them as well because they're reinforcing our shadow because they're giving us hurt to move through. And we're upset with them for harming us, but we're not moving through the harm. We're ruminating in thoughts. We're showing up, negotiating, navigating from a place of wanting to avenge, wanting to do something about, maybe even hurt, harm, or maim. We're resorting to hurtfulness in the name of a cause. So understanding how to balance things out and understanding self-righteousness on behalf. Because honestly, to be in a term from union means we're in service to the divine. So this is a brother, this is a sister, this is a person that we've known in many different forms through many different lives, and to treat them, mistreat them. Like, you can love the soul and hate the human. You could love the person and not at all like their behavior. You can love somebody and not like them. You can respect somebody and not trust them. You could be all about somebody and want nothing to do with them. So this is the mother archetype, and smothering, instilling guilt. That's something I'm seeing a lot with the divine feminine. There's a lot of this, you can't be bothered, can't be bothered. You don't, you won't, you can't, give me, give me. I don't see, I don't see, I don't see, I don't know, because he won't show. So first of all, a lot of us are attracted to people that are needy. What they need is healing. What they have is a hole in their heart that only God will fill. And we don't spend the time to get to know their name and their God before we touch their genitals. And we come to find out that this person we're trying to get lovey-dovey intimate with actually needed our healing. They were a spiritual child, not a spiritual lover. So when they come into their own consciousness, maybe or maybe not because we taught them, but we created circumstances where they needed to heal from. We become upset when they change, when they're not obligated to be who they were 5 minutes ago, let alone 5 weeks ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago. They start doing better because they know better. And maybe these things they know are self-aligned and not with the union. Because actually they show up whole to a union. So do you. You show up whole to the union. You can't expect somebody to be something that they're healing through when they're done healing. Who they were in the beginning will dramatically change, systemically will change. If they're healing through something, they become something better, they transform. When a butterfly is no longer a cocoon, is no longer a caterpillar, when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it changes completely. When a tree is no longer a seed, it changes completely. When a tadpole becomes a frog, it changes completely. And if you're in love with a tadpole, you can't be upset with it when it all of a sudden has frog agendas and no longer tadpole agendas. And if you are not willing to become a frog, or if you became a frog and they are still a tadpole, you can't be upset. Now, sometimes you got used to somebody when they were a tadpole. You got to know them as a tadpole. But when they become a frog, some of those things are not going to carry over. Some of those things are going to be different. And you can't be upset that they have frog desires. They're no longer a tadpole. So that's what came through today. We have commitment as well. In the poem, the awakened heart is like a lantern. Keep it sheltered from the turbulence of the winds of desires. We are candles lit by the great flame. The breath of life does not extinguish us. On the contrary, it only serves our flame to blaze brighter. Here in the temple of one love, there is no flickering or smoke to our flame. We are natural in our purpose, simply to bring the warmth and light of love to life. We dance through. We dance though we are in silence and stillness. Okay, that got butchered. We are candles, lit by the one great flame. The breath of life does not extinguish us. On the contrary, it only serves our flame to blaze brighter. Here in the temple of one love, there is no flickering or smoke to our flame. We are natural in our purpose, simply to bring the warmth and the light of love to life. We dance, though we are stillness. We are on fire, though we do not burn. Love the divine, and it will manifest through different people. Your love for God will manifest in your animal, your pet, your boss, your neighbor, and your lover. There is a flame that must be safeguarded. In truth, it can never be extinguished. It is the light that never goes out. Even with such enduring power, our recognition and respect of this flame is essential to human development. The flame is holy and lies within each human heart. When the flame is recognized for its worth, it ceases to flicker and smoke, becoming very still. In the stillness, the light can fulfill its destiny to shine brightly so that as to reveal every single path, absolutely clear and without wavering in its fluctuations of fear and attachment. Desire does not have to be a hindrance on the path. It can show us our passions to help us find our purpose. However, the attachment that can come with desire, the belief that it can be sated only by the one particular person, one set of circumstances, can cause us to stop looking at that light and what is revealing to us. The way forward on our path in the here and now, and instead try to forcibly conjure the shadows to become what we imagine they should be when we stop seeing life as it is, showing up for us in every moment and engaging with it as it is, we can become careless with the light of the heart, our huffing and puffing to force what does not need to be forced, and cause the heart light to flicker and waver. This can make our way seem uncertain, and doubts can crowd in upwards. Doubts can crowd in upon us as the light is compared and compromised in its purpose. We forget to trust in what is because we get caught up in attachment and fear surrounding our desires rather than letting life move us. We try to move life. There's a way forward on the life path that needs to be seen by us now. It will be helpful for us to have that clarity and that certainty. We might have already caught a glimpse of it, but we are doubting our version or ourselves. We're doubting our vision or ourselves. We're being reminded to not doubt. What we are feeling, what is deep within us, is the passion of love in the heart that is being lit up. It's true. It's real. We are being led in by the progress of life itself. We must trust in this, even when it seems at times that we are being led away from our vision. So this was very much that. We were feeling something manifest that we wanted, and it was manifesting in ways that we didn't understand because we were being confronted with trust in the divine. But since we didn't trust in ourselves because we didn't have a steady relationship with the divine, we started questioning things and comparing things. And we were seeing the light, but we were questioning the light because we were trying to make shadows real. Light would come, it would grow. We had parts of ignorance that were growing slow. When we started to see things fade away, that we were persisting on making true realities instead of staying in the light, we ventured into the shadows and tried to make those shadows real. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you. Thank you for allowing me the pleasure to do so. The videos coming out may or may not have flash sales going on. There may or may not be resources going on for a while. The flash sales are only going to be talked about in the comments until we kind of clean a few things up. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. I could be reached at oracle@richesabundance.org or baba@ablosi.org. Take good care. Bye-bye.